make sure that we get through everything.
This meeting is being recorded.
Hi, everybody. My name is Ale Barker. Welcome to the Rotary Club. It's so fabulous to see you all here and online, and it's a very, very special day. Can you hear it? Do I need to? Okay. Can you turn up the volume a little bit in the room? Just in the room, the master. Great. Thank you. How about everybody online? Can you hear me? Great. Thank you, Joy, and Raj and everybody else. Really great to see you all. So we're now on the 7th of February, and February is Black History Month, an annual celebration of achievements by African Americans and a time for recognizing their central role in US history. Also known as African American History Month, the event was the brainchild of noted historian Kara Lehner and other prominent African Americans. And since 1976, every US president has officially designated the month of February as Black History Month. Other countries around the world, including Canada and the United Kingdom, also devote a full month to their Black history. I've been grateful for the coverage so far by the Herald Times, no less, that has decided to publish prominent stories every day during the week that connects us to Black History Month. And the one that caught my attention yesterday was about People's Park. I don't know if you all saw it, but it was a really interesting article. It's the small space that we all know on the corner of Kirkwood and Dunn. Sometimes we get ice creams there. I've been here since 1986. And it's only recently that I became, perhaps 8 years ago, that I became aware of its history. Opened in 1968, with walls of hand-painted murals, stacks of vinyl records, and shelves of paperbacks, the Black Market was there, celebrating Black culture in a white-dominated and often very racist town. You may know this, but I didn't know that it was only after 3 months of the Black Market being there that it was a target of racially motivated firebombing. This was also the year that the Ku Klux Klan tried to stage a march in Bloomington, 1968, and obviously also the year that we tragically lost Martin Luther King Jr. and Robert F. Kennedy to assassination. What a year that was. So as we celebrate this wonderful town and continue to impact it with our commitment to service above self, let's also remember the historic ground upon which we stand. So switching gears now, I'm very happy to know that our club continues to diversify. And today's a very special celebration for us to cherish 5 new inductees. Might I say they're absolutely amazing people of the Bloomington Rotary Club. So let's bring them up to the podium here, and we're going to celebrate the new inductees. So is Phil here as well? Phil Emerson's here as well? Great. Oh, there's Phil. And their sponsors. And if the sponsors could come up as well, that would be great.
I think this is a landmark moment. 5 inductees and sponsors. It's great to have you all up on the stage. So let me do a quick bio for each of our illustrious inductees. Phil Emerson is President Emeritus of Garrett Evangelical Theological, that's hard to say, Seminary in Evanston, Illinois, with his spouse, Dr. Elaine Emerson. They are Bloomerangs, returning to Bloomington in 2016. Phil has served as pastor of 3 congregations in Indiana, including First United Methodist from 1992 to 2000, before he ventured off as a prodigal son into the strange land of higher education administration. The Emersons have lived and worked in many places, from New York to Panama to Atlanta to Evansville, Indianapolis, Chicago, San Francisco. The list goes on. I think you were avoiding jury duty. They are either overly adventurous, or more probably Phil couldn't keep a job. He holds a PhD from Emory University and an MDiv from Asbury Theological Seminary. Phil writes an occasional blog at philemerson.com, which I can say is quite good. In retirement, he has served as interim pastor in Denver and San Diego. He leads workshops on racial and environmental justice and continues his support from many service agencies, especially Habitat for Humanity. Currently, he is challenged by the situation of scores of unsheltered folks surviving on the streets here in Bloomington. The Amersons have 4 grandchildren, Gus and Eleanor in Oakland, Zach and Colin in Chicago. Their daughter Lydia is a managing director with Deloitte in Chicago, and their son Andrew is director of Lex Lab at Hastings School of Law in San Francisco. Phil. And Lexi Walters. Lexi is the current market city manager for Gigabit Now, a privately owned fiber internet service provider. Gigabit Now is the partner of Hoosier Fiber Networks, who is constructing and installing the new citywide fiber network for the city of Bloomington. Prior to her current role with Gigabit Now, Lexi successfully ran her own handmade sign business for 2 years and spent her early professional career in administrative management. Lexi is originally from Greencastle, Indiana, but has lived in Bloomington for nearly 6 years. She received her bachelor's degree in business administration from Ball State University and plans to pursue her MBA through IU in the near future. She is a lover of all things sports. You're in a good town for that. Spending time with family, traveling, and of course, her cat Dexter, which was named after the serial killer, I've been told. Dakir Abdullah. Dakir is currently a PhD candidate in the Department of African American and African Diaspora Studies at IU Bloomington, where he also minors in sociology. He's originally from Alabama, where he attended his undergraduate institution, the University of Montevallo. There he majored in psychology and minored in philosophy. Vocationally, he is currently an American Library Association Civic Imagination Student Assistant, as well as Public Services Lead in the Neil Marshall Black Cultural Center Library. He sometimes does security work for Marshall Security and Investigations. He enjoys meditative walks, hiking, reading, video games, biking, and listening to vinyl and meditation. Dakir is particularly taken with the Rotary Club's dictum, service above self, as he has tried to embody this ideal in his life. This is reflected in the history of volunteer work and communal undertakings he has taken part in within the different spaces he has inhabited. In his hometown, he volunteered weekly to give out food to patrons at the local food bank, where he himself was simultaneously getting food from. While attending the University of Montevallo, one of the most impactful events he took part in for him was called the Big Event. Here, a portion of the student body participated in a citywide cleanup endeavor where they went to different properties, cleaned up trash, laid bricks, poured mulch, and more. Sounds like something we might want to incorporate. When Dakir moved to Bloomington, he was devastated by the amount of homeless people that frequented downtown and near the Beeline Trail. He came upon disparate homeless camps in different bodies of woods on bike rides. To help in the best way he could, he began volunteering at the community kitchen here in Bloomington and later joined its board of directors. He is keenly passionate about providing those less fortunate with hot meals with no questions asked. Dakir also takes pride in being a volunteer mentor for the Real Men Read program here in Bloomington. And through this initiative, he pairs with kindergarten teachers where he reads to kindergartners once a month. Afterwards, each student is given a copy of their own book to keep for free. Dakir. And Alex Crawley with the City of Bloomington. Alex is the Director of Economic and Sustainable Development with the City of Bloomington. His responsibilities are to cultivate a resilient community built on shared prosperity, economic opportunity, environmental stewardship, and the thriving arts and cultural ecosystem. Before joining the city, Alex helped to run and launch small businesses in and around Bloomington. His professional background combines advertising and operations management in a variety of fields, including telecom. He has also held leadership positions at Ogilvy and Mather in New York, AT&T, and Insight Communications. He serves on various local boards, including the Lake Monroe Waterfront, Downtown Bloomington Inc., the Bloomington Urban Enterprise Association, and the Lake Monroe Sailing Association. Alex is a native of New Haven, Connecticut, a graduate of Fordham College in New York, a composer, and the doting father of a senior boilermaker, Saturday, a sophomore LMU Lion, and a high schooler at Bloomington South. Alex, welcome. Henry Leck, an internationally recognized choral director. Henry Leck is a professor emeritus in choral music at Butler University, where he served on the faculty for 27 years. He is the founder and conductor laureate of the Indianapolis Children's Choir, where he served for 30 years. He's conducted honor choirs in nearly every state and all continents except Antarctica. He's conducted the premiere of a Bulgarian oratorio in both Kennedy Center and the Lincoln Center, and has conducted annually for nearly 30 years in Carnegie Hall. He has taught at the American International School in The Hague, the Liberia Università di Bolzano in Italy, the Singapore American School, the Bangkok International School, and the Conservatory of Music in Rio de Janeiro. He has served as a U.S. jurist for international choir competitions in China, Italy, Latvia, and Malta. Mr. Leck has received many honors, including the Sagamore of the Wabash, the Indiana Distinguished Hoosier Award, the Indiana Governor's Arts Award, the Lowell Mason Fellows Award by the National Association for Music in Education, the Outstanding Hoosier Musician Award, and the Nouveau Lifetime Achievement Award. He is a Rotary Foundation Paul Harris Fellow. He's authored a textbook, 4 teaching DVDs, and is the editor of 2 nationally known choral series. And in 2016, Mr. Leck retired to Bloomington. There seems to be a theme with the group up here. And he became an oil painter and now serves as president of the board of the Arts Alliance of Greater Bloomington. So what a group. Aaron, if you would do the pleasure of induction. I love the diversity of where we've lived, where we come from, and the backgrounds. It just speaks to what Rotary is all about. Aaron?
Phil Amerson, Lexi Walters, Dakir Abdallah, Alex Crowley, and Henry Leck. On behalf of the board and membership of the Bloomington Rotary Club, it's a great pleasure to welcome you as the newest members of our club. We look forward to the fellowship that we will share, as well as your participation in the club projects that make our club, community, country, and world a better place. Though Rotary isn't a political organization, Rotarians are vitally concerned with good citizenship and the election of effective leaders to public office. While Rotary isn't a religious organization, it is built on those highest principles that have served as a moral compass for people throughout the ages. Rotary is an organization of business, professional, and community leaders pledged to uphold the highest ethical and moral standards. Rotarians believe that worldwide fellowship and peace can be achieved when people work together and uphold the Rotary motto of service above self. Rotary activities exemplify the partnership, respect, and generosity that one would expect from people who believe they have a responsibility to help others. Phil, Lexi, Dakir, Alex, and Henry, you have been chosen for membership in the Bloomington Rotary Club because your fellow members believe you to be a leader in our community, and because you possess the qualities to champion the message and principles of Rotary. You are representative of your vocation and talents within our club and community. You now become an ambassador of Bloomington Rotary, carrying the ideals of service to all within your sphere of influence. Our community will know and judge Rotary by your character and service. We will also look to you for inspiration as we strive to become better Rotarians. We will now pin you with the distinguished badge of a Rotarian, your Rotary pin. We ask that you wear your Rotary pin with pride, not only to all Rotary functions, but in your many endeavors as a symbol of your commitment to Rotary ideals and our recognition of your contribution towards a better world. Fellow Rotarians, please rise and welcome our newest Rotarians, Phil Amerson, Lexi Walters, Dakir Abdallah, Alex Crowley, and Henry Leck.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Aaron and Tracy, and everybody. Congratulations to our new Rotary members. How absolutely amazing this is. This is a great reflection of the strength of our club and our community and what we're able to do together. It's really very special to see them all. I have to also thank Tracy for an incredible reception that we had last week. Tracy, thank you so much for hosting the event with our newcomers. It was very, very special. For those of you who are on Facebook, hopefully you saw the pictures. It was a really wonderful event. We have a few quick birthdays to, well, not quick, but we have birthdays to celebrate quickly. Hopefully each person will enjoy a very long and loving day. Tim Riffle is February 5th, Bill Murphy, February 7th, Efrat Pfefferman, February 9th, and Lance Eberly, our district governor, February 11th. So happy birthday to them all. Thank you, yes. We also have member anniversaries. Erin Brewington, 2 years. Aaron Davis, 10 years. Martha Foster, 13 years. And Jeff McKim, 13 years. So congratulations to you all. So we won't have updates today because we want to move into the program. We have a very special day prepared by the youth in our community, represented by Rotaract. And I'm going to invite John Miller to come to the podium here and join me. There's a picture, though, that I'd like to show from Teachers Warehouse. Rotaract, John Miller has been responsible for, and with partners, developing an incredible club this year. I believe that there are approximately 30 members of the club right now. You'll mention that as well. But think of it, a year ago, Rotaract barely existed at all. And so it's totally impressive and wonderful to see. This is a picture of the Rotaract members at Teachers Warehouse over the weekend. They were volunteering there. So congratulations to you. I just wanted to make sure that we all saw that lovely picture. So John, please come up and join me. And welcome to the Rotary Club.
Hi, everyone. Before I get started, I would like to introduce some guests that we have today. So we have, if you'd like to stand when I say your name, Caroline Barbier from Rotaract, Megan Gearhart, also from Rotaract. Our 3 student speakers today, Kara Lehner, Liv Davis, and Tommy McEvilly. And we also have guests of Tracy Jovanovich, Caroline Calloway Thomas. So welcome to all our guests today. And Joy, do we have any guests online today? Oh, well, any guests online, welcome as well. So if you don't already know, my name is John. I am the current president of Rotaract Club at IU. I'm a sophomore studying international law and Chinese. We have 3 great guest speakers today, as well as many Rotaract members in attendance. Before we get to that, I'm going to introduce you to kind of what we've been doing in Rotaract Club this past semester and this semester. So to start, our club was reestablished in 2019 before COVID with the help of our prior president, Megan Gearhart. Shout out to Megan Gearhart. We have about 25 active members as of today, and our focus has been on volunteering, career development, and professional development. So this semester, we're also undertaking several small service projects. One of these projects involved converting plastic shopping bags into plastic yarn, which will then be used to make sleeping mats, which we hope to donate to the local homeless shelter. We're also collaborating with the knitting club this semester, where we will learn how to make small articles of clothing, such as hats, with the intention of donating what we make to those in need. Volunteering, as Alon said, is also very essential to our club. We take pride in giving back to the community. We usually volunteer a couple times each month, and we've been involved with a lot of organizations here in Bloomington, including Teachers Warehouse, My Sister's Closet, the Buddy Walk, Hilltop Gardens, Ryla, and the Rotary Toast. In addition to volunteering, we also invite speakers to come in and talk about a variety of topics. We've had people come to talk about the South Sudan conflict, the China Belt and Road Initiative, experiences while working in the UN, and local climate change initiatives. In addition to these speakers, we've also had 2 Rotarians come in to speak, including Sandy Keller, who gave an overview of her nonprofit, My Sister's Closet, and Ashley Wesley, who introduced the Rotaract Club to Rotary International. We've also had the opportunity to participate in professional development workshops, including resume building and developing an elevator pitch. This semester, we also have some more exciting speakers lined up. We have a Peace Corps recruiter coming in, as well as a local representative from the organization Beacon, who will come in to speak about homelessness in Bloomington. At Rotaract, our general goal is to educate our members on a wide range of topics and help them prepare for their careers after college. We do this by getting them to think about their future and connecting them with professionals here in Bloomington. So I'm very honored to be serving as the president of Rotaract this year, and I want to personally thank Joy Harder, Alon Barker, and Jim Bright for kind of helping me get started this year. Finally, I would also like to mention that we are currently fundraising. We are partnering with a local business called Popcorn Kernels with a Twist. We're selling different flavors of popcorns, and 50% of what we sell will go back to our club to support our future service projects and general club expenses. There should be a flyer at all of your tables with a link and QR code to our website. You can also place an order in person with a Rotaract member here today. I recommend that way because you won't have to pay for shipping. So I just want to thank everyone for their support, and we truly appreciate Rotary's commitment to helping Rotaract. I now want to introduce Megan Gearhart, who will give a short reflection.
Hello, John asked me to do this last week. I said, sure, why not? Great excuse to skip class, right? So I was, a little confused, not entirely sure what I wanted to talk about. And then I got an email last week from a woman named Marima. And she was the coordinator when I did the Rotaract Positive Peace training with a Rotary District grant from Tennessee that was funded for any Rotaract club in zones 30 and 31. This was during 2020, heart of the pandemic. The organization partnered with New Gen Peace Builders and a woman named Patricia Schaefer, which, if any of you guys are really up to date on what Rotary does with their positive peace initiatives, she is actually one of the global peace scholars. She spent several months in Thailand doing peace training, and she now runs an organization that helps introduce youth, specifically high school and college age students around the world, to the concept of positive peace and how they can interact in their communities. And it got me thinking about how amazing it is when people work together. Because without that program, I would have never known as much about positive peace as I do now. I never would have made it integral to my studies. It wouldn't be reflected in the thesis topic that I plan to write about this semester. And I would never have known about positive peace without Rotary. Erin Davis introduced me to the concept. I had no idea. It's not necessarily something that wasn't talked about in my classes, but it would be briefly mentioned and kind of glossed over before we moved on to the next subject. And I realized that it takes a village to make something happen. Rotary is all about that. We take the strengths that everybody has and we use them to make every initiative better. We use them to grow and develop and build new opportunities for people within the community. And we use it to make our communities better places. And I'm really appreciative for all of the things that Rotary has done to help me become a better person. And as I continue to grow with the assistance of Rotary and its programs and its people, I hope I can continue to give back. So I will actually be serving with New Gen Peace Builders as a conversationist and guiding some of their high school groups for the next several weeks on peace projects in their communities. And it is one of the ways that I want to give back to one of the organizations that has helped me become the person I am today. And I hope we all remember that whatever it is, whether it's the food bank that, I had to go to the Hoosier Hills Food Pantry a couple of times during COVID. I try very hard to get back there whenever I can to help out. And whether it's something that has directly impacted you or it's a cause that's near and dear to your heart, I really hope that you continue to offer your skills and your experiences to help build and grow these organizations to do more in the community.
Okay, without further ado, I will now introduce our 3 student speakers for today. So in November, these 3 students all attended the 2022 United Nations Climate Change Conference in Egypt, better known as COP27. They were all students at Jessica O'Reilly's International Climate Governance course, and they're here to tell you more about their experiences as delegates to COP27. So now I'd like to introduce to the podium Kara Lehner, Liv Davis, and Tommy McEvilly.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having us today. John, we did have a presentation to go along with. Oh, okay. Thank you. Great. Well, thank you guys so much for having us today. We're very excited to be here. Like John mentioned, my name is Kara Lehner. I'm a senior here studying at IU, studying finance, accounting, and sustainable business in the Kelley School of Business. I'm from St. Joe, Michigan, so right across the lake from Chicago.
And I'm Tommy McEvilly. I'm also a senior here at IU, majoring in human biology with a minor in social science and medicine. And I've actually lived in Bloomington for the last 10 to 12 years. So it's great to still be able to be here and get to be with all of you today.
And then my name is Liv Davis. I am also a senior. I study geography with a concentration in climate and environmental change, international studies, and then I'm also pursuing a minor in atmospheric science. I'm from Capitola, California, so definitely not used to the cold that's been happening the last few weeks, but Bloomington has become my home so much in the past 4 years that I'm choosing to stay here for a couple more. So I'm really happy to be able to speak to you guys today about our experiences at COP27.
Great. So today, oh, perfect. Okay. So today we're going to go ahead and so when we attended COP27 this past November, each of us chose a different research topic. Everyone in our delegation did. But before we dive into those, we're going to talk a little bit about what COP27 is if you've never heard of it before. It is not on. Thank you. Oh, perfect. Okay. So if you've never heard of COP before, COP stands for Conference of the Parties. It's United Nations climate change conference that happens annually each year. It rotates to different countries each year. So this past year it was in Egypt. Next year it's going to be in Dubai. It just kind of rotates around the world. So who attends COP? Well, it's a group of nations who have signed the UNFCCC, the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. So it's a group of nations who have committed to coming together to try and combat climate change. And at the conference, they come and they share different solutions, different technologies, different progress that the countries have made during the year, and they come and share everything that they've learned together. So that way other countries can learn from each other. And then typically at the end of the conference, some sort of binding document is put together that has actionable tasks for what the countries are going to be working on for the next couple of years. And typically those actionable tasks are supposed to be in line so that they prevent the rise of temperatures above 1.5 degrees Celsius. And so who attends COP27 or who attends the COP in general? Students like us, there were students from many universities there. Many world leaders attend. President Joe Biden was there. Boris Johnson was there. We have a couple slides actually to show all the famous people that were there, which was exciting and fun to see them. But many scientists, business leaders, some like the big four accounting firms, a lot of those firms were there. So very wide variety of organizations attend COP27 or attend COP in general. But at COP27, there were about 200 countries that were there. So just a little background about COP. So, and just a couple prior significant COPs, COP3, so the third COP that happened, created the Kyoto Protocol. And this was essentially when people realized that, hey, our actions are contributing towards climate change. We are causing greenhouse gas emissions. And it really was when everyone came together and said, hey, we need to work together to stop this because this is bad for the environment. COP21 created the Paris Agreement. I'm sure many of you have heard of this before. It created the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. You can see that image on the side. Things like no poverty, climate action, zero hunger were some of the goals that came out of that. And that was really the first time that climate change mitigation and adaptation were really addressed at a COP. And then prior to going to Egypt, COP26 occurred in Glasgow. The Glasgow Climate Pact was created. And really in Glasgow, they just really decided that they want to use the next decade to take some really strong climate action and have strong support for all the work that everyone is doing. So here's just a little bit of what a typical day looks like at COP. So a COP conference is traditionally about 2 weeks long. And for our delegation, half of our class went the first week and then half of us went the second week, depending on what our research topic was. But when we went there are different zones. The green zone is where a lot of businesses and activists tend to hang out. And in the blue zone, you have to have credentials to go into. We were fortunate enough to have credentials. And so we got to go into the zone. many countries that attended, they had their own pavilion set up. Like I have a picture of India's pavilion there at the bottom, and they have areas where they have guest speakers, they have interactive like walls and things. You can learn about all the work that India is doing, and tons of countries had that. So that was really exciting. The conference is huge. COP27 in week one, there were over 40,000 people there, which was, so it's a very large climate change conference. At the bottom is the bottom right, bottom left. have to do the left and rights. Is the picture of like the layout of the conference, and it was huge. There's tons of plenaries and action rooms and meeting rooms. So there's a lot of big events that we could go to. We could go to some of the larger rooms and see people like Michael Bloomberg speak, Al Gore speak, President Biden speak. So that was really cool. And then there's some smaller rooms too, where they had smaller panels for different countries. Just a couple more pictures. The picture on the left is one example of a plenary room, where a lot of people, or like that was the smaller of the two plenary rooms. And then the picture in the middle is an example of like a small conference room within a pavilion of a panel event. And then the picture on the right is the entrance into COP before you go into security to go into the venue. But now we're going to go ahead and dive into our research now that you have a better idea of what COP is. So I'm going to be going first in my research. So this semester, I spent the past semester researching carbon capture, utilization, and storage, specifically looking at future market growth for this industry. If you're not sure what carbon capture, storage, utilization, and storage is, and I'll refer to it as CCUS throughout the presentation. But if you're not sure what it is, it's essentially the process of using technology to capture carbon, and you either use it to make things, which is like the utilization process, or you store it, which is the storage process. And you capture it from the burning of fossil fuels or from different industrial processes. So just a little background on CCUS. There are a lot of different types of CCUS technologies. A lot of them like the pre-combustion process, the post-combustion process. This really relates to when in the industrial process, carbon dioxide is taken from the atmosphere and really what state of matter it's in, based on like the solid absorption versus membrane separation. This is pretty complicated, and it's not quite as popular as direct air capture. Direct air capture is the main way that most CCUS companies take carbon dioxide out of the air. And some of the key companies that do this are Carbfix, Climaworks, Carbon Clean, Acre Carbon Capture. These were all companies that were there at COP27 sharing their technologies. So what does the process look like? What do these companies do? So they take the carbon from the atmosphere, and then at the plant where they've captured it, they compress it and purify it, and they transport it, and it either gets stored or it gets utilized. And it can be stored in a lot of different places. It can be stored in ocean storage. It can be stored in saline aquifers, which are essentially, think of like an underground pocket of space where they can store it. There's also depleted oil and gas reserves are some other places that they can store it. And then additionally, there's a lot of new technology that's coming out that's trying to store carbon dioxide into more modern places, like into walls when you're building a house, or into window frames, into cement. That was a lot of the new technology that was being talked about at COP27. Although these key companies, these are some of the larger companies I have listed on the screen, they don't do as much of that new technology. They do some of the more traditional storage aspects. So I mentioned a lot of new technology is coming out with CCUS. And so this market is currently valued at about $2.5 billion, and it's expected to grow to $33.6 billion by 2030. That's about an average growth rate of 52.7% per year, which is crazy. That's really, really rapid growth, which is really exciting because this is a very viable solution to help combat climate change. This really can have a big impact on helping us meet that 1.5 degrees Celsius goal. And so while I was at COP, I wanted to learn more about where the companies were at with the CCUS technology. Are they ready to scale it up? And what are some of the barriers to reaching that high growth rate? So I talked to a lot of Nordic and Scandinavian countries like Sweden and Norway while I was at COP. And it was really exciting to hear that, because a lot of CCUS companies are based out of those countries. It was really exciting to hear that the testing is done, they've built the technology, and now they're just ready to scale it up, which is really exciting. But I did learn that there's a few main barriers for them to be able to scale it up. The first is that there's just a lack of private funding. A lot of their governments have invested money into the technology, but there aren't a whole lot of private investors. And that's because, one, there aren't a whole lot of overall standards, effective regulation, or a good price of carbon for CCUS right now. And what I mean by that is the price of carbon, if you go to Sweden, the price of carbon is way different than it is in the US. And the price is very volatile and changes a lot. And so we just really, or a lot of people don't want to invest in it because they don't want to invest in something that the price is going to decline rapidly or it's going to be different in different countries. So that's one of the main issues. And then there is a big, like a lack of effective regulation on CCUS. And what I mean by this, and this is something that activists are very concerned about. And what I mean by this is imagine you are a company and you emit X amount of emissions, but then you go and you invest in CCUS technology and you say, hey, I'm reducing emissions by Y amount, which is great, but you're still emitting X amount of emissions. And so you're not actually changing your internal processes. You're still emitting the same amount of emissions, and maybe that's still growing. And activists are really concerned about that because they don't want companies to greenwash by just investing in CCUS technology. So there's not a lot of regulation to prevent companies from doing that. And so that's a big concern activists have. But I will say, I think that despite the lack of regulation and lack of private funding, there's a lot of opportunities for this technology. The CEO of Carbfix said, theoretically, we could store hundreds of thousands of gigatons of CO2 in the ground, way more than we would ever need for climate action, which is really exciting because this really can be a viable solution for climate change and help us meet that 1.5 degree goal. There's so much opportunity for this industry and there's so many new technologies coming out that are available, which is really exciting. I think it just shows the potential to help combat climate change. But now I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to Tommy.
Yeah, thank you, Kara. I think one of the best things since we've been back is we get to share what we learned with each other, and you start to understand more how all of your research topics sort of tie into each other. And I think learning about the CCUS has been wonderful because my research was particularly focused on the role and visibility of human health within climate change. I'm really interested in the medical field, and so naturally it felt like I could go and explore this really global issue that's really affecting people's livelihoods and affecting our public health sort of systems and see how the two are interconnected. And so I think you begin to understand that none of this really exists in a vacuum. So here are some sort of grim statistics. So 7 million premature deaths every year from poor air quality. And, that's one of the things that the CCUS technology can really help with. CO2 is the most abundant greenhouse gas in the atmosphere. And, that's what we're really trying to limit to ensure that we can maintain a good quality of health around the world. 250,000 deaths from malnutrition, malaria, diarrhea, and heat stress, all things that are exacerbated by these rising temperatures and lower air quality. 1.3 million deaths every year from antimicrobial resistance, which is something that was really focused on at the conference, which was exciting to see. Egypt took a really strong and forward-moving stance on best practices that we can use in hospitals to ensure that the medicines we're using are used appropriately and efficiently so that we're not causing more problems than we began with. And then it's the 5th failed rainy season in the Horn of Africa. So that's a region that includes Eritrea, Ethiopia, Somalia, Kenya, Sudan, and South Sudan. And, this is a region that has, there's a lot of fertility in the soil and there's a lot of opportunity for agriculture and the rearing of livestock. But for 5 years in a row, they've been experiencing severe drought. And that affects this ability to bring in money, to provide food, to maintain your quality of life. And so I think looking at this, you just see all these avenues through which climate change really impacts health. And something that you'll hear that I heard in almost every health-focused room that I went into at COP27 was that the climate crisis is a public health crisis. And those are just some of the reasons why. With rising sea levels and drought and floods, there's an increased magnitude of climate refugees, which is something that we've seen particularly in the Middle East this past year. I think even around the time that we went to COP in November. And so, it can be at times discouraging, but I think one of the beautiful things about COP was seeing how all of these people from all around the world, from some of the most affected areas, really come together to share what they've been experiencing, share their solutions, because climate change is something that affects every part of the world differently, and that's important to recognize as we move forward and understand what the potential solutions are. So I was focused on the role and visibility of human health at COP27. The World Health Organization actually sponsored a health pavilion for the full 2 weeks. This was the second time that's ever happened. The first was at COP26 in Glasgow. And I think Glasgow just saw in general a really big shift towards talking about health in these conversations. They have this really centralized location where they bring in medical and interdisciplinary professionals, so in public health sphere and agriculture, from energy sectors, and they all really come together. And you can find this common ground where, why do we talk about all these different things? It's so that we can brainstorm, because we're all looking for the right solution so that we can better our quality of health. It was MAPA focused, which stands for most affected peoples and areas. So there was a lot of discussion about places like sub-Saharan Africa and Southeast Asia. And not just discussion about those places, but really the leadership from those places as well. A lot of the focus was having the people who experience it and have to deal with it regularly, having them lead the discussions. And that's really big on sort of taking that like human rights approach that's about participation, having accountability, non-discrimination, and then empowering people to work together. And with this health pavilion as well, you could just tell there was such a focus and energy on education and the dissemination of information so that we can all be informed, so that we all know how to discuss with the people around us the issues that we're facing, and how to really go on that sort of sense of collaboration so that you can implement changes. And moving forward, I think I was able to speak with a lot of medical students, a lot of physicians, nurses, public health professionals from around the world. And what they really advocated for was, even though there is this wonderful World Health Organization pavilion where a lot of the health discourse happens, what they want to see is a decentralization of health. So instead of just having this one pavilion where you're hearing about the troubles that are affecting people and reducing people's quality of life and experiences, really the best step is to integrate health into all these different topics. So when we're talking about carbon capture, why do we want to use carbon capture? It's so that we can limit global warming, so that people don't have to face these droughts or these floods or all these really unpredictable forces that are plaguing us. And this little diagram on your right really emphasizes One Health approach, which is where you are looking for healthy ecosystems, healthy animals, and healthy humans, and really understanding that, again, none of this exists in a vacuum. And we have to be really conscious about what we do so that we can better our society and continue to work in a manageable way. And with that, I'll pass it off to Liv.
Hi again. Okay, so for my research at COP27, I chose to look at the concept of nature-based solutions and how they're being utilized in international climate agreements. Before I go into a bit more about what are nature-based solutions and what my time at COP showed me, I wanted to start with the quote of, "We are nature, we depend on nature." That was a very constant theme that was presented at all the different panels and events I went to. We cannot address the climate crisis without addressing the biodiversity crisis that we're seeing as well. Additionally, as Dr. Bruno Oberle said, who's from the International Union for the Conservation of Nature, COP26 recognized the importance of nature in climate agreements, but COP27 is making more plans of action. So what are nature-based solutions? Nature-based solutions, or NBS, is an umbrella term that refers to the policies or actions that center around the natural ecosystem. With that, it's putting nature or human-centric policies in place in order to address different effects of climate change. Examples of nature-based solutions are ecosystem restoration, reforestation, and sustainable water management. Something that I found really interesting that they tried to show at COP27 was nature-based solutions is more than just going out into a neighborhood and planting trees or going into forest and helping restore the ecosystems, removing invasive species. It's about changing how we interact with nature and how we treat it in our day-to-day life. Sustainable water management was a very large discussion about how it can reduce overall vulnerabilities across the planet and help build resilience to different climate disasters and also to political instability. Nature-based solutions can be found in many countries' nationally determined contributions, or NDCs, under the Paris Agreement. And the Paris Agreement's Article 6 really gave way to the utilization of nature-based solutions in these agreements. Also, something I wanted to put out is this image was something that I found really powerful at COP. This was the wishing tree that an activist put up, and that you could write wishes for the different youth and children of the world. And throughout the week, it grew to more and more strings on it. I took this picture at the beginning of the week, and by the end, it was completely filled. And it was something that really made an impact on me on how wide reaching we have to make these goals to be. Ooh. So I went to COP27 to look at the prevalence of nature-based solutions in climate negotiations and climate action, because it is actually a very recently recognized term by the UN. It's only been in the last 2 years that nature-based solutions was given an official definition and recognition. And so I'm going to talk about quickly 3 things at COP27, which kind of formulated my opinion that nature-based solutions is now being given its due course. And at COP28, which will be in Dubai this upcoming November, I believe that that will be the nature COP that they are pushing for it to be. The first thing I'm going to mention is Biodiversity Day. So this was a presidency thematic day focused on the role of nature and nature-based solutions in the fight against climate change. All pavilions from Just Transition, the World Health Organization, Indonesia, China, the US, all centered their events around the role and purpose of nature in their communities. It was really a day that was centered around putting nature first and putting how we interact with nature first. A large part of that day was also looking at about how an Indigenous way of life is putting a nature-centric view of life. Also on this day, I had the opportunity to speak with Secretary John Kerry and ask him what he is doing to help protect Indigenous sovereignty with nature-based solution implementation. And he discussed how it's becoming more and more of a prevalent thought process, and it's a concern for the US and other countries and parties at COP27 to have equitable and fair nature-based solution implementation across the globe. Additionally, there was launching ENACT. So ENACT is Enhancing Nature-Based Solutions for an Accelerated Climate Transformation, a mouthful of a title. So I'm just going to call it ENACT. ENACT was a program that was launched by Egypt and Germany. It is a woman-led initiative to help increase resources and funds for implementing nature-based solutions all across the globe. And it was amazing to hear them speak and hear about how they really want to put the people that are most vulnerable, and they want to put nature at the center of these decisions. And there were people that were tearing up in the discussion as the amazing people that launched this initiative were discussing why they felt so powerful about this. And finally, for the first time in COP history, which was a little bit shocking to me, nature was used as a word in a cover decision. You can look through all of the different cover decisions. I did it after. They never once list nature by name. They put nature into this decision to cement its role and importance of it as we address the climate crisis, as we have to address that as well as the warming climate. Something that I loved about COP27 was you can walk in thinking you know a little bit about everything, and I walked away knowing more than I could ever imagine about nature-based solutions. It's definitely formulated a lot of what I want to do going forward and has been the basis of what I'm writing my senior capstone on this semester. Coming from California, nature is a really big, important thing for me. I was a camp counselor who spent years and years sleeping in the woods with leading different activities and building environmentalism within young children. And so seeing the prevalence now that nature is being given at COP27 and will be given at the future COPs filled me with the utmost joy and kind of gave me resilience to keep going in this climate fight. So now we're going to summarize everything and give our final takeaways. So I'm going to pass it back to Tommy, but thank you so much for letting me speak with you today.
Yeah, thanks, Liv. So probably the biggest thing that came out of this year, which was really exciting, you wait the whole 2 weeks to find out like what these cover decisions are going to be. And there was an amazing achievement in creating a loss and damage fund. basically with climate change, the goal is to mitigate. The goal is to ensure that we're putting less CO2 out into the atmosphere. And when mitigation sort of starts to fail, you move to adaptation and hope that these places that are being affected, you can build resilient infrastructure, ensure that there are good public health systems to account for any struggles that may come about. And when adaptation seems even still out of reach, that's when you get to loss and damage. And this is essentially climate reparations, ensuring that we're doing what we can to give people the capacity to build their opportunities that they need. And so this is going to take a while. It's going to take the next year to figure out the specifics. But really, as it says up there, this is a huge win. This is something that particularly small island states have been waiting for a very long time. So it was really beautiful to learn about that while we were getting ready to get on our flight, passed out essentially. There's still focus on phasing down fossil fuels. It wasn't as explicit in the final text, but it said the effort should go towards it. And so I think that's moving in the right direction on what we should focus on. And the Paris goal of maintaining and limiting climate change to 1.5 degrees Celsius, we're still working towards that. That's still the ultimate goal, shooting as low as possible. Scientists are saying it may not be attainable, but that, the main thing is to never give up hope and to continue to push for that, continue to push for resilience. And then, as Liv discussed, nature-based solutions, the buzzword of the year. It was always so exciting to run into Liv during the day and hear what she had to say. She was always a bundle of joy and excitement. And transparency moving forward. Information sharing is key. And I think as we move forward, knowing what we know now, we can look forward, hopefully, to a much brighter future with people working together. And thank you for being a part of that too. I think you're all a wonderful part of what community means, and we're all one big global community. So really, thank you for your time. Yes. Yeah, and if anybody has any questions, here are some of the famous people too. Al Gore, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres, Michael Bloomberg, Boris Johnson, Governor Holcomb, and Nancy Pelosi, and Joe Biden was there. Secretary John Kerry was there. But yeah, any questions? We're welcome to take any.
We have our famous person here, Phyllis.
Woo!
My daughter Kelly Askew has spoken to you about climate. She was one of the faculty that accompanied these great kids. Great performance. Tommy,
yes,
you need to let the medical school know about your action here at COP27. If they don't already know about it, you need to include that and send that on to the admissions committee.
I will absolutely. I'm working towards that. Thank you so much.
I noticed during your presentation about health-related outcomes that there were all those little gears in the middle, and it reminded me of Rotary International. And I wondered if any of you experienced or if any NGOs were participating in this conference and what their role was.
Yeah, absolutely. NGOs, I think, are sort of some of the lifeblood of the Conference of the Parties. You get people who are highly motivated, coming from all these different backgrounds, representing different sectors and identities. And I think those are the people who really help move forward and keep strong advocacy, enable solutions, and create ideas. Did you guys have anything to say about that?
So there's different groups at COPs, and they're given pretty cool nicknames. They're Engo, Ringo, Bingo, and essentially, so the one that I worked a lot with was Engo, which is environmental NGOs. And so there were different groups such as the Nature Conservancy, the World Wildlife Foundation, and Bingo is business and independent NGOs. I feel like I should clarify what some of those are, but I love the acronyms. So they're everywhere. And I actually had the opportunity with a few other delegates to go to something called the People's Plenary, which is where all the NGOs and all the people, all the civil society come together for a meeting where they put down basically their demands of the climate conference and what they're calling the parties to do. And it usually culminates with a sort of march and a call to action. And there's the NGOs, they are taking center stage, they are leading that. There's Tunga, which is the trade union NGOs, and that is they are leading that people's plenary, and they are very involved in everything that they do, and they're very prevalent at COP. And speaking with some of those NGOs was just absolutely amazing, and they truly are the lifeblood.
And whether that was a feature of the, we just go ahead and.
I know there was a conversation on that because I saw it as a panel title. I was unable to go to it, but I do know that that was a topic of conversation at some point, but I was not at that panel. I don't know if either of you were.
No, but I definitely saw a lot of things during the first week. I saw a lot of events related to it. I was unable to attend, but I think I definitely saw 3 or 4 events about it during the first week.
Thank you so much, Rotaractors. We are so thankful for all of you. As you may know, now 7 areas of focus, and the newest area of focus is climate. And one climate that's a particular concern to Rotary is the prevalence of plastics. We understand there's an island of plastic floating out in the Pacific Ocean somewhere. And when I go to Kroger, my wife says, do not bring home groceries in plastic. But was there any talk of that there? And just the subject of plastics and the importance of using biodegradable materials.
Yeah, I actually had the opportunity to attend a panel. It was linked through the Health Pavilion, all about pollution and our really high plastic usage that is throughout the world. And I think one of the focuses, something I think that the NGOs, the non-governmental organizations, really lead as well, is that focus on like really what sustainability means and how we can begin to use different materials to ensure that we don't have all this particulate matter in the oceans building up or in the atmosphere. And I think that has big implications as well, not just for human health, but for the biodiversity that we have in the oceans. It's really, I've said this a few times, none of this exists in a vacuum. And so there was a lot of discussion about that. And I think we see a lot of sustainability efforts at COP27 as well. I think was everything, the cups, were they all biodegradable? They didn't use any plastic. Yeah, so that's something that is definitely known and that people are working towards.
I have a question. The weather is obviously something that I imagine what you talked about, with where the weather comes and how we affect it. But now we have something else to think about, and that's earthquakes and how that destabilizes the world. Mm-hmm. Is there discussion about things like that?
There was a lot of conversations. Actually, Tommy and I attended one of these panels together about risk management and disaster preparedness, and kind of how that needs to be tied inherently into our climate action planning that we're doing, is planning for, as you said, earthquakes or tsunamis or wildfires, and in building that into our climate action planning, because it's all about building overall resilience, because you can't have true resilience if then something's going to be able to destabilize the community significantly. So there was a lot of conversation about needing to address environmental and natural disasters in climate action planning.
Huge thanks to the 3 of you. What extraordinary human beings these are, and how amazing this new generation is taking us into the future. I was just thinking about the fact that we not only have 3 Rotary clubs in Bloomington, we already have 4. The Rotaractor group has been officially, the Rotaract organization has been officially welcomed as official members of the Rotary Club internationally. So, John, thank you for leading the 4th Rotary Club in Bloomington. It's really great to have you all here. In support of your presentation, there's an organization that we choose every quarter, and Pets Alive, which is a Bloomington-based organization, is being supported by the Rotary Club, and thanks to you for giving your presentation. So thank you very much. Next week, we're going to be meeting, hopefully in the Georgian Room, as we expected today, Our guest will be Naja Hoshmand, who will talk about her journey from Afghanistan to the United States. So that should be and you're all welcome to join us once again. So with that said, let's go through the four-way test of the things we think, say, or do. First, is it the truth? Second, is it fair to all concerned? Third, will it build goodwill and better friendships? Fourth, will it be beneficial to all concerned? And fifth, is it fun? Thank you so much, everybody. Have a wonderful week. And if we could have the new members come up to the stage, I'd like to take some pictures. Congratulations.
Oh, what a
Yeah.
group, huh? Let me say goodbye to Carolyn.